The vast expanse of space stretched before the Imperial Collection fleet like an endless black canvas dotted with the distant sparkle of stars. 5 warships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of a foreign sun. The Crescent's Fong, the flagship, led the small armada toward the blue-green sphere hanging in the distance. Earth, a backwater planet categorized as minimal resistance, maximum yield, perfect for their quarterly slave collection mission. Lieutenant Voss stood on the observation deck, his feline features betraying no emotion as he watched the planet grow larger on the view screen. His gold-flecked eyes narrowed slightly. The Felidari officer had overseen 15 such missions, each one identical to the last. Find settlement, extract workforce, process, deliver. The Empire needed bodies for its ever-expanding mining operations in the Cygnus sector, and humans, with their surprising durability and disappointing lack of unified defense systems, made excellent laborers. Preliminary scan complete, sir, reported the sensor officer, a four-eyed Groven whose multiple pupils dilated as he read the incoming data. We've detected a small settlement in the northern quadrant. Approximately 47 humans. No significant technological defenses. Voss flicked his tail in casual acknowledgement. Standard procedure. Deploy a ground team. Quick and clean. Around him, the bridge crew worked with the relaxed efficiency that came from repetition. Some even joked about what souvenirs they might pick up this time. Earth trinkets had become something of a collector's item among certain Imperial circles. Sir, called the communications officer, Collection Team Alpha is deployed and will reach the settlement in approximately 12 minutes. Voss nodded, not bothering to hide his yawn. Another routine day in service to the Galactic Empire. The collection team descended upon the human settlement with practiced precision. The small cluster of buildings, barely more than temporary shelters, offered no resistance as armored soldiers with plasma rifles herded terrified humans into the open. Please, we've done nothing. We're just survivors. A man fell to his knees, hands raised in desperate supplication. The team leader, a bulky draconid named Sergeant Krell, ignored the pleas. His scaled face remained impassive as he directed his squad to secure the perimeter. Tag and process, he ordered, motioning toward the huddled group of humans. Check for disease markers, physical defects, or signs of rebellion. Standard procedure. The soldiers moved among the humans, scanning each one with handheld devices, attaching tracking bracelets to their wrists. The humans trembled, some crying, others stunned into silence, except for one. A young woman stood in the center of the group, her posture oddly relaxed. While those around her cowered or wept, she maintained a straight back and level gaze. Her dark hair was pulled into a simple braid, and her eyes, a startling pale blue, followed the soldier's movements with an unsettling calm. Krell noticed her immediately. Experience had taught him to identify potential troublemakers, and this one's demeanor raised every alarm in his military training. "You," he barked, pointing his rifle at her. "Step forward." The woman complied without hesitation. No fear, no trembling, just smooth, deliberate movements. "Identify yourself," Krell demanded, the tip of his rifle just inches from her chest. "My name is Alina." Her voice was soft but clear. Alina Yaga. A junior officer approached with a scanner, running it over her body. The device beeped, displaying her biometric data on a small screen. The officer glanced down, then suddenly froze. "Sir," he called to Krell, voice uncertain. "There's an alert flag on her surname. It's classified as a historical threat." Krell frowned, taking the scanner. The device displayed a small warning symbol next to the name, Yaga, along with a notification, Archived Threat Designation. See Imperial Historical Archives. "Probably just a data glitch," Krell muttered, though something cold slithered down his spine. These field scanners pull from fragmented databases. Lieutenant Voss had descended to oversee the final collection. He approached now, his feline eyes fixing on the strange human. "What's the delay, Sergeant?" "Sir, we have an anomaly. This human's surname is triggering a historical warning." Voss took the scanner, studying it with narrowed eyes. Yaga, he read aloud, the words strangely heavy on his tongue. I thought this name had disappeared centuries ago. You know of it, sir? Krell asked, suddenly alert. Voss hesitated, ears flattened slightly against his head. A vague recollection from the academy. Ancient history, nothing more. He handed the scanner back with a dismissive gesture. Processor like the others. It's likely just a coincidence of nomenclature. Yes, sir, Krell responded, though his instincts screamed caution. Are you afraid? Alina asked suddenly, her gaze locked on Voss. You should be. The lieutenant's fur bristled along his neck. Secure her, he ordered sharply. Additional restraints. As the soldiers approached with reinforced cuffs, Alina offered her wrists without resistance. Her smile never wavered, even as they locked the heavy restraints in place. Your ship, she said conversationally as they led her toward the transport shuttle. It's called the Crescent's Fong, isn't it? How poetic. My father would appreciate that name. Voss froze mid-step. How could you possibly know that? Alina didn't answer. Instead, she began to hum a strange, lilting melody that raised the hair on every soldier's neck. The tune drifted through the air as the shuttle doors closed behind them, sealing the captives inside. In the cockpit, a sensor officer frowned at his console. Sir, I'm picking up an unusual transmission pattern. It's coming from Earth, but it doesn't match any known human communication protocols. Ignore it, Voss ordered. Set course back to the Crescent's Fawn. As the shuttle lifted off, Alina's soft humming continued, a haunting lullaby that seemed to whisper of ancient secrets and promised retribution. The Crescent's Fawn was a marvel of imperial engineering. Nearly a kilometer in length, its sleek, arcing design resembled the predatory tooth of some cosmic beast. Inside, the corridors gleamed with the cold efficiency of a regime that had conquered 1,000 worlds. The brig level was located deep within the ship's belly, a labyrinth of cells designed to house and subdue various species. Energy fields hummed between reinforced bars, suppression collars blinked with steady red lights, and automated turrets tracked any movement that deviated from authorized patterns. Alina Yaga sat cross-legged in the center of her cell, eyes closed as if in meditation. Around her, other humans huddled against the walls, as far from the energy field as possible. Their fear was palpable, a sharp contrast to Alina's serene composure. How can you be so calm? Whispered a young man, his face streaked with tears. Don't you understand what's happening? We're never going back. Alina opened her eyes, regarding him with a gentle expression. What's your name? Thomas, he answered, surprised by the question. Thomas, she repeated, testing the sound. Everything will be all right. This isn't the first time the Empire has taken someone from my family. Her lips curved into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. They never learn. She began to hum again, the same haunting melody from the shuttle. The sound seemed to vibrate in a way that made the air feel strange, heavy with potential. In the security monitoring station, a Groven technician named Krell adjusted his headset, frowning. With 4 eyes affording him superior visual processing, he was responsible for overseeing the surveillance systems throughout the brig. Something's wrong with the audio feed from cell block 7, he muttered, tapping at his console. It's picking up interference. His supervisor, a senior security officer named Tavik, barely glanced up from his reports. Run a diagnostic. Krell's fingers danced across the controls, but the strange distortion persisted. The humming from cell block 7 had somehow contaminated the feed, creating ripples of static across multiple channels. Diagnostic shows no hardware faults, Krell reported, genuinely puzzled. But look at this waveform pattern. It's unusual. On screen, the audio visualization displayed bizarre, almost symmetrical patterns that pulsed in time with the humming. As they watched, a camera in cell block 7 suddenly swiveled, focusing directly on Alina's face before spinning wildly and pointing at the ceiling. What the? Tavik leaned forward, all 4 of his eyes now wide with alarm. Override that camera. Krell tried, fingers frantically working the controls. I can't. It's locked out. Throughout the brig level, similar anomalies began to manifest. Lights flickered in strange patterns. Doors cycled through their locking mechanisms without command. Guards reported feeling sudden chills or hearing whispers just beyond the range of normal hearing. One guard, stationed outside cell block 7, swore he saw a pair of glowing eyes staring at him through the solid metal wall. When his relief arrived, they found him huddled in a corner, muttering incoherently. Tavik, growing increasingly concerned, accessed the prisoner database. The name Yaga caught his attention immediately, along with the attached historical threat notation. Unlike Lieutenant Voss, Tavik was something of a history enthusiast. Computer, he commanded, access Imperial Historical Archives. Search term, Yaga. The computer hummed, then responded, access requires clearance level Omega. Do you wish to submit a formal request? Tavik hesitated. Requesting such high clearance would alert his superiors, potentially jeopardizing his career if the search was deemed unnecessary. Yet something about this situation felt dangerously familiar, like a half-remembered nightmare. Request basic non-classified summary, he amended. After a moment, the computer responded, summary available. The designation Yaga appears in Imperial historical records dating approximately 300 standard years ago, associated with unexplained technological failures and vessel disappearances in the Earth quarantine zone. Further details classified. A cold feeling settled in Tavik's gut. He remembered now an academy lecture about historical threats. The professor had mentioned the Yaga incident only briefly, as a footnote to a broader discussion about Earth's failed rebellion. Krell, he said quietly, go to cell block 7. I want a visual confirmation on the Yaga prisoner. Sir, Krell looked uncertain. Just go. And be careful. Krell made his way through the corridors, passing other guards who seemed on edge. Something was affecting the entire level. A tension in the air, a feeling of being watched. Approaching cell block 7, Krell noticed the temperature had dropped significantly. His breath formed small clouds as he reached the observation window. Inside, the human prisoners were huddled together for warmth, except for Alina Yaga, who stood directly before the energy field, staring at him expectantly. Hello, Krell, she said, her voice perfectly audible despite the barrier. Krell froze. What do you know my name? Alina tilted her head, studying him with those unsettling pale eyes. Have you ever heard the story of a house that walks on chicken legs? Or of a mortar and pestle that flies through the stars? Despite himself, Krell felt a shiver of primitive fear. What are you talking about? Just old Earth fairy tales, Alina replied with a small smile. Stories about my family. My ancestors. The ones who punish those who take what isn't theirs. Behind her, the other prisoners had gone utterly still, watching with wide eyes. I think you should tell your superiors to release us, Alina continued conversationally, before my father arrives. Krell backed away, unable to shake the feeling that he was in the presence of something far more dangerous than a simple human prisoner. He turned to hurry back to the security station and nearly collided with a guard stumbling down the corridor. The guard, a veteran named Marlex, was pale and shaking. The walls, he gasped. I saw them, moving, and there were voices, saying chicken legs over and over. Krell supported the trembling guard. You need medical attention. No. Marlex clutched at Krell's uniform. It's her, the human. She's not. She can't be. Before Krell could respond, an alarm blared throughout the ship. Emergency lights bathed the corridor in pulsing red. Tavik's voice came over the comm system, tight with tension. All security personnel, implement Protocol Sigma. Prepare the Yaga prisoner for immediate transfer to central interrogation. In the security station, Tavik stared at his console with growing horror. Whatever was happening, it was spreading beyond the brig. They needed to contain the situation, and quickly. On the bridge of the Crescent's Fong, Lieutenant Voss received a surprising transmission. The message was brief, its origins seemingly impossible. Earth command to Imperial vessel. You have captured Yaga. Release her immediately or face the consequences. Voss stared at the communication officer in disbelief. Earth Command? There is no unified Earth government, let alone a command structure capable of interstellar communication. The signal matches known transmission patterns, sir, the officer reported. But it definitely originated from Earth. Voss's tail lashed in irritation. Another primitive attempt at intimidation. Send no response. The Crescent Fong's commander, Captain Drezek, was less dismissive. A veteran of the Imperial fleet for over 40 cycles, the imposing Kardari had weathered enough surprises to develop a healthy respect for the unexpected. Lieutenant, he rumbled, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light as he turned. What do we know about this Yaga? Voss straightened. Nothing of significance, Captain. A surname that triggered an outdated alert in our historical database. Likely a coincidence. Captain Drezek's compound eyes narrowed. I've never known our databases to flag anything without reason, Lieutenant. Have you consulted the Imperial Archives? I deemed it unnecessary, sir. Then I deem it necessary, Drezek countered sharply. Access the archives immediately. Meanwhile, in the depths of the ship, Krell had returned to the security station to find Tavik absorbed in old records he'd managed to access with his emergency override codes. Sir, Krell reported, the prisoner knew my name. And she said her father is coming. Tavik barely looked up. Listen to this, he said, pointing to the screen. Yaga Protocol, do not detain, do not provoke. It's an ancient directive buried under layers of classification. What does it mean? It means we've made a terrible mistake, Tavik whispered. The records are fragmented, but there are references to entire Imperial battle groups that vanished after encountering someone with a Yaga name. The details are redacted, but the warning is clear. On the screen, more information scrolled past. Fragmented reports of ships found drifting, crews missing or driven mad, strange technological failures that defied explanation. Whispers of a force that moved through the Empire's most secure systems like a ghost. There's more, Tavik continued, voice barely audible. Some accounts claimed the Yagas aren't truly human. Or if they are, there's something more dangerous than any species we've encountered. A sudden power fluctuation plunged the room into darkness before emergency lighting activated. We need to tell the captain, Krell insisted. Already trying, Tavik said, but communications are down. In her cell, Alina Yaga stood as the suppression collar around her neck sputtered and died. The energy field containing her flickered once, twice, then stabilized, but something had changed. The pale blue barrier now seemed more like a suggestion than an actual impediment. She stepped forward, placing one hand against the field. It parted around her fingers like water, causing no harm. It's time, she said to the other prisoners. Stay close to me. The surveillance camera swiveled, focusing directly on her. Alina smiled up at it. Still not learning your lesson? In that moment, every device in cell block 7 simultaneously failed. Lights exploded in showers of sparks. Door mechanisms ground open with metallic screams. Suppression collars fell away from prisoners' necks. Across the ship, similar malfunctions cascaded through critical systems. On the bridge, consoles erupted in warning signals. The navigation system reset itself, sending the ship drifting off course. Weapons systems cycled through calibration modes without authorization. What's happening? Captain Drezek demanded, his crystalline form reflecting the chaotic emergency lighting. Unknown, sir. The helmsman's panicked voice rose above the cacophony of alarms. We're losing control of multiple systems. The main view screen flickered, then displayed a symbol that none of them recognized. A simple house elevated on 2 bent lines, resembling legs. Lieutenant Voss stared at it, first standing on end. Captain, I found something in the archives. The Yaga Protocol was established after an incident 3 centuries ago. An Imperial fleet attempted to subjugate a remote human settlement and encountered a resistance. The records describe a single human who devastated 12 warships using unknown technology. The only survivor described the human as Baba Yaga. A single human. Drezek's disbelief was evident. Before Voss could respond, the ship's communications system activated independently. A deep voice, measured and cold, filled the bridge. I will come for her. The message repeated in every room, every corridor of the massive ship. Then, more systems began to fail. Life support fluctuated. Gravity wavered. The engines stuttered. Send an emergency signal to the Empire, Captain Drezek ordered. Tell them. He stopped, suddenly realizing the futility of his command. Can we even transmit? Negative, sir, the communications officer replied, frantically working his console. All channels are being actively jammed. But that's impossible with our countermeasures. On the view screen, ancient Earth script began to scroll. Symbols most of the bridge crew couldn't decipher, but which felt ominous in their alien geometry. Captain Drezek made his decision. Prepare for emergency protocols. We are under attack by an unknown entity. Lieutenant Voss, find the Yaga prisoner and secure her. She's at the center of this. But it was already too late. Alina Yaga had left her cell, leading a group of freed humans through the corridors of the Crescent's Fawn. Guards who attempted to stop them found their weapons malfunctioning or, more terrifyingly, turning in their hands to aim at their owners. Alina moved with purpose, heading not toward the escape pods, but toward the bridge. Behind her, the other prisoners followed, their fear of their captors now overshadowed by a growing awe of the woman who walked before them. As they moved, the ship's automated announcement system activated. Attention, all personnel. Her name is Yaga. Aboard all operations. Or die. Across the vast expanses of space, something was approaching. A vessel unlike any in the Imperial Registry. Its design defied conventional starship architecture, resembling a bizarre fusion of ancient and futuristic elements. The front section curved like a mortar, the rear like a pestle, and below, extending from hull, were structures that moved like articulated legs. Inside this impossible vessel, a tall, gaunt man sat in contemplative silence, his weathered hands resting on the arms of a chair that seemed carved from a single piece of ancient wood. His eyes, the same pale blue as Alina's, were closed in concentration as his consciousness extended through systems beyond Imperial understanding. Baba Yaga had entered the game. Throughout the Empire, the effects were already being felt. Space stations reported strange malfunctions. Communication relays transmitted unauthorized messages in dead languages. Defense systems aimed themselves at friendly targets. In the Imperial Central Command, an emergency session had been convened. Admirals and governors argued amongst themselves as reports flooded in of widening disruptions. It's impossible, insisted Admiral Zirith, pounding the table. No force could penetrate our security protocols this thoroughly. An older member of the council, Governor Talash, sat silent and pale. Finally, he spoke. It's happened before. 3 centuries ago. The Yaga incident. That's nothing but a myth. Zirith countered. A story to frighten cadets. I was there, Talash said quietly. I was a junior officer on the only ship that survived. We were ordered never to speak of it, but I saw what a Yaga can do. The council fell silent, the weight of his words settling over them like a shroud. What do they want? Asked the Archcommander finally. The girl, Talash replied. They took someone named Yaga. We must return her immediately. Capitulate to primitives? Zirith was incredulous. Never. We are the Empire. As if in response to his defiance, every light in the chamber went out simultaneously. When they returned seconds later, a new message flashed on every screen. Remember Yaga. On the Crescent's Fawn, Alina had reached the bridge level. The ship's internal defenses had either failed or actively turned against the Imperial crew. Behind her trailed not just the freed human prisoners, but also several Imperial personnel who had surrendered, recognizing something ancient and terrible in what was unfolding. Lieutenant Voss intercepted her at the bridge entrance, plasma rifle raised. Stop right there, he ordered, voice steady despite his fear. Alina regarded him with something like pity. I told you to be afraid, Lieutenant. You should have listened. Voss's finger tightened on the trigger, but the weapon sparked in his hands, suddenly burning hot. He dropped it with a cry of pain, watching in horror as it melted into a puddle of slag. How are you doing this? He demanded. I'm not, Alina replied simply. Not alone, anyway. The bridge doors opened behind Voss, revealing Captain Drezik. The imposing Kradari stood in the doorway, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the emergency lighting in fractured patterns. Yaga, he addressed her directly. What do you want? First, contact your empire. Tell them to stand down all forces. Then, set course for your central command. And if I refuse? As if in answer, the ship shuddered violently. On every view screen, a new vessel appeared. The impossible craft with its bizarre design. My father has arrived, Alina said simply. The vessel's approach defied physics. One moment, it was a distant object on the sensors. The next, it had somehow phased into existence alongside the Crescent's Fong, dwarfing the Imperial warship. No docking procedures were initiated. No hay luxelainth. Yet suddenly, standing on the bridge beside Alina, was a tall figure draped in a long coat that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Baba Yaga had the appearance of an aging human male, with deep lines etched into his face and a silver-streaked beard. But his eyes, those pale blue eyes identical to Alina's, betrayed something far older, far less human than his form suggested. You have taken my blood, he said, his voice the same one that had echoed through the ship's systems earlier. Each word fell like a physical weight, causing several bridge officers to flinch. Captain Drezik, to his credit, maintained his composure. We were unaware of her significance. The Yaga protocol was archived, forgotten. Forgotten? Baba Yaga's expression darkened. Then you shall be reminded. He turned to Alina, his severe features softening slightly. You allowed yourself to be captured. It seemed the most efficient way to demonstrate the problem, she replied with a small shrug. You've been too gentle with them, father. They've forgotten their history lessons. Baba Yaga nodded thoughtfully, then addressed Captain Drezik again. Set course for your central command. We will discuss terms. Terms? Voss interrupted incredulously. You can't possibly think the Empire will negotiate with. Baba Yaga didn't look at him. He merely flicked his fingers in Voss's direction, and the lieutenant found himself unable to speak, his words frozen in his throat. Your empire, Baba Yaga continued as if there had been no interruption, has forgotten many things. It has forgotten the boundaries it should not cross. It has forgotten the powers it should not challenge. Most importantly, it has forgotten its agreements with Earth. At that moment, the ship's communication system activated independently. The Emperor's personal secretary appeared on screen, his face ashen. Captain Drezik, the secretary began, his voice thin with stress. You are to comply with all requests made by the visitors. This comes directly from the sovereign throne. After the transmission ended, silence fell over the bridge. Captain Drezik turned to the navigation officer. Set course for Central Command. As the Crescent's Fong altered its trajectory, Alina approached her father. You waited long enough, she said quietly. You were never in danger, he replied. I know, but the others were. Humans have been disappearing for years. Baba Yaga's expression hardened. A violation of our agreement with the Empire. They promised to leave Earth alone after our last discussion. They thought you were gone, Alina said. Or dead, or a myth. Then it's time to refresh their memory. Throughout the Empire, chaos continued to spread. Defense systems targeted their own installations. Slave processing centers experienced catastrophic failures that somehow only freed prisoners without harming them. Communication networks broadcast the same message in thousands of languages. Remember Yaga. The Imperial Obsidian Citadel, floating above the capital world of Corvus Prime, was the heart of the Empire's power. A massive structure of black crystal and titanium alloys, it housed the sovereign throne and the machinery of imperial governance. Security had been increased to unprecedented levels. Every available warship had been recalled to defend the capital. Every weapon was primed, every shield strengthened. None of it mattered. The Crescent's Fong arrived first, its systems now fully under Baba Yaga's control. Behind it came the impossible vessel, moving through space with casual disregard for the laws of physics. Imperial defenders tracked the approaching ships, weapons locked and ready, But at the critical moment, those weapons powered down. Shields failed. Communication systems broadcast only static. In the grand audience chamber of the Obsidian Citadel, Emperor Valdrath the Merciless awaited the inevitable. Surrounded by his elite guards, the seven-limbed monarch who had conquered 300 star systems sat rigid with fury. How is this possible? He demanded of his advisors. One human? One family has compromised our entire defense network. Governor Talash, summoned from the Emergency Council, stepped forward. Your Magnificence, the Yagis are different. They exist at the intersection of technology and something else, something our sciences cannot explain. Magic. Valdrath spat the word like a curse. Superstition. Clark's third law, Your Magnificence, offered a scientific advisor. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Before Valdrath could respond, the massive doors to the audience chamber opened. No guards challenged the two figures who entered, Baba Yaga and Alina, walking side by side. They carried no visible weapons. They wore no armor. Yet every guard in the chamber raised their weapons, then hesitated, suddenly uncertain. Baba Yaga surveyed the room with mild interest, as if he were a tourist visiting a mildly diverting attraction. Alina's expression was harder, her eyes cataloging each face, each potential threat. Emperor Valdrath, Baba Yaga said, offering a slight nod that was more acknowledgement than deference. We have business to discuss. Valdrath's many limbs twitched with suppressed rage. You dare invade my throne room? My empire? You invaded my world, Baba Yaga replied calmly. Again, despite our previous arrangement. From within his coat, he produced a small container. Opening it revealed a steaming beverage and 2 cups. Tea, he offered, setting the container on a small table that had not been there a moment before. The absurdity of the gesture, offering tea in the middle of what amounted to an invasion, struck Valdrath like a physical blow. What is this madness? A tradition, Baba Yaga explained, pouring the amber liquid into both cups. We always offer tea before business. It's only polite. I don't want your primitive beverages. Valdrath raged. I want you removed from my citadel. I want your disruptions ended. I am the emperor of 1,000 worlds. Baba Yaga sipped his tea, unperturbed. Currently, you are emperor of approximately 742 functional worlds. The rest are experiencing governance difficulties. He set down his cup and produced a document, an actual physical document, written on what appeared to be paper. The tea accord, he said, sliding it across to Valdrath. My terms are simple. First, you will end all slave-taking operations throughout the galaxy. Second, you will grant independence to any world that requests it. Third, you will never again approach Earth or any human colony without explicit invitation. Valdrath stared at the document in disbelief. And if I refuse? Baba Yaga's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room dropped perceptibly. Then the difficulties currently affecting your empire will become permanent. Your technology will fail. Your ships will drift. Your weapons will turn against you. You're bluffing, Valdrath hissed. No power could maintain such widespread disruption indefinitely. Would you like to test that theory? Alina asked, speaking for the first time. Her voice was soft but carried throughout the chamber. We've had centuries to prepare this response. My ancestors left protocols embedded in your systems before your great-grandparents were born. As if to emphasize her point, the lights throughout the citadel flickered. The sovereign throne itself, a masterpiece of technology that responded only to Valdrath's unique biosignature, suddenly discharged a spark that made the Emperor jump. You see, Baba Yaga continued conversationally, humans have a particular talent for hiding things in plain sight. We've been seeding your empire with our technology for generations, always disguised as something else. Trade goods, salvage, gifts. He gestured to the document again. The tea accord. Sign it, and these effects end immediately. Refuse, and watch your empire crumble around you. Throughout the chamber, guards and advisors looked to their emperor, waiting for his decision. The weight of history, both past and future, hung in the balance. With a gesture of defeat that utilized 3 of his limbs simultaneously, Valdrath reached for the document. "This is coercion. This is consequence," Baba Yaga corrected, "for breaking your agreement and taking what was not yours to take." The emperor signed, pressing his official seal into the ancient paper. The moment the document was completed, every malfunctioning system throughout the empire simultaneously restored itself, but with one crucial difference. On every screen, in every database, the Yaga protocol was prominently displayed, no longer archived, but active and visible to all. A reminder, Alina explained, so no one forgets again. Across the galaxy, the news spread rapidly. Slave worlds erupted in celebration as their oppressors' systems failed, allowing the imprisoned to overpower their captors. Imperial governors found themselves surrounded by populations suddenly unafraid, suddenly empowered. A new age had dawned, catalyzed by a name that was quickly becoming legend. Yaga. In a small settlement on Earth, where it had all begun, a group of resistance fighters received the news with satisfaction, but not surprise. They had known what would happen when the Empire made its fatal mistake. They had waited, patient as spiders, for the inevitable moment when someone would forget the old warnings. "It worked," said a young communications officer, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. "The Empire is falling." "No," corrected an older woman, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. "It's changing, evolving, as all things must." She smiled, an expression that held both warmth and something predatory. The Yagas have always understood that sometimes the universe needs a reminder. A little fear keeps the powerful honest. On the impossible ship, now drifting peacefully above Earth, Baba Yaga poured fresh tea for his daughter. The vessel's interior was a curious mixture of the antique and the hyper-advanced. Carved wooden panels alongside holographic displays, hand-woven tapestries beside quantum computers. "Will they honor the agreement this time?" Alina asked, warming her hands on the cup. "For a while," her father replied. "Then someone will forget, or think they've found a way around it, and we'll remind them again." Alina nodded, considering. There will be power vacuums. New empires might rise. Undoubtedly. And we'll watch them too. Baba Yaga smiled, the expression transforming his severe features. "That's what we do, my dear. We watch. We wait. We remember. And when necessary, we remind them of the old stories." Like the witch in the house with chicken legs, Alina mused, recalling the childhood tales her father had told her, stories passed down through generations of Yagas. Precisely. Her father leaned back in his chair, which seemed to adjust to his posture without any visible mechanics. Humans have always understood the power of stories. The Empire forgot that. They cataloged us as a historical threat, filed us away, and thought that was enough. He gestured toward the viewing portal, where Earth rotated slowly below them, blue and green and achingly beautiful. They never understood what we are. "And what are we, Father?" Alina asked, though she already knew the answer. "Guardians," he replied simply. "Caretakers of a balance that extends beyond human understanding. The Empire isn't the first power to threaten that balance, nor will it be the last." The ship hummed around them, a living entity responding to their conversation. Panels shifted, displays adjusted, and the environmental systems created a gentle breeze that carried the scent of pine forests. "The others will need guidance," Alina said after a thoughtful silence. "The liberated worlds. Some will seek revenge." "Yes." Baba Yaga's expression grew somber. "Freedom can be as dangerous as oppression when wielded without wisdom." He set down his teacup with careful precision, which is why our work is not done. Through the main control interface, a curious blend of holographic displays and what appeared to be hand-carved wooden controls, they watched as reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy. Some worlds celebrated their newfound freedom with peaceful ceremonies. Others had descended into chaos as power structures collapsed. "We can't intervene everywhere," Alina observed. "No, but we can guide, suggest, remind." Baba Yaga activated a communication system with a gesture. We have allies on many worlds, people who remember the old ways, the proper balances. A holographic map of the galaxy materialized between them, certain points illuminated with soft blue light, the same pale blue as their eyes. Contact points, he explained. People who carry our stories, our warnings. Some are direct descendants of the original Yaga line. Others are simply those who understand what we represent. Alina studied the map with growing amazement. There are so many. We've been patient, her father replied with a slight smile. Very patient. For 3 days, they remained in orbit around Earth, observing the galaxy's transformation through their network of contacts. The T-Accord had already been implemented in the core Imperial worlds, with slave transports redirected to return their captives home. On the morning of the 4th day, as Alina practiced ancient Earth meditation techniques in her quarters, an alert chimed softly. A transmission from the surface, specifically from the small settlement where she had allowed herself to be captured. The face that appeared on the communication panel was familiar. Thomas, the young man who had been imprisoned alongside her on the Crescent's Fawn. Alina, he greeted her, his expression a mixture of awe and uncertainty. We wanted to thank you. Everyone you saved. Behind him stood a group of former captives, now safely returned to Earth. They watched her with expressions ranging from reverence to lingering fear. No thanks necessary, Thomas, she replied gently. The Empire violated an ancient agreement. We merely enforced it. But what happens now? Another voice called out. An older woman pushed her way forward. The Empire will regroup. They always do. Power abhors a vacuum. Alina considered this. The galaxy is changing. Many worlds are claiming independence. Others are forming new alliances. She leaned forward slightly. Earth will need to decide its own path forward. Will you help us? Thomas asked. You and your father? The question hung in the air, weighted with implication. Alina knew the dangers of direct intervention, how easily guardianship could become dominion. We will watch, she answered carefully, and should the need arise, we will remind. But Earth's future belongs to its people. After the transmission ended, Alina found her father in the ship's arboretum, a massive chamber where plants from thousands of worlds grew in carefully maintained environments. He stood before an ancient oak, one gnarled hand resting against its bark. They want guidance, she told him. Protection. They always do, he replied without turning, especially after liberation. The fear of freedom is as powerful as the desire for it. And what will we give them? Now he turned, fixing her with those pale blue eyes that had witnessed centuries of cosmic history. Space, time, opportunity, and yes, protection when truly needed, but not governance. Never that. He gestured to the oak. This tree is over 500 years old. It grew on Earth near our ancestral home. I brought a sapling aboard when I began my journey. Alina understood the metaphor. Roots and branches, connected yet separate. Precisely. Her father's approval was evident in his slight smile. The Yaga way. A soft tone echoed through the arboretum. Another communication, this one from the Imperial core worlds. The holographic display showed Governor Talash, the elderly official who had remembered the Yaga incident. Baba Yaga, Talash began formally. The transition proceeds as outlined in the Accord. However, several military commanders have gone missing with their vessels. We believe they may attempt to form a resistance. Expected, Baba Yaga replied. Names and last known coordinates. As Talash provided the information, Alina watched her father's expression. There was no surprise there, only calm calculation. He had anticipated this development. After the transmission ended, he turned to her. Rogue elements. Those who believe they can restore the old order. Shall we pursue them? He shook his head. Not yet. Let them reveal their intentions first. Some may simply seek to carve out independent territories. Others, he trailed off, but the implication was clear. Some would seek revenge against the Yagas. We should prepare regardless, Alina suggested. Yes. Her father's eyes gleamed with something like pride. You're learning quickly. The balance between action and restraint is the most difficult lesson of our legacy. Together, they returned to the control room, where Baba Yaga activated a rarely used system. Throughout the ship, ancient mechanisms hummed to life, technology that predated the Empire by centuries. Contact the network, he instructed Alina. All focal points. Tell them to be vigilant for Imperial remnants seeking to re-establish control. As Alina carried out these instructions, she reflected on the strange duality of their existence. To most of the galaxy, the Yagas were myth, legend, a cautionary tale. Yet here they were, flesh and blood, wielding power that seemed magical only because it operated on principles the Empire had never understood. Not magic, simply science so advanced that it had circled back to the primal. Technology that worked with natural laws rather than bending them to submission. The Empire had never grasped this fundamental difference in philosophy. Days passed as they monitored the galaxy's reshaping. New alliances formed, old enemies reconciled. And throughout it all, the name Yaga spread like wildfire across communication channels. A talisman, a warning, a promise. On newly liberated worlds, shrines appeared bearing the symbol of the house with chicken legs. Not worship, but remembrance. Gratitude. They're making us into gods, Alina observed with concern as she reviewed these reports. A predictable human response to forces they don't understand, her father replied. It will fade as their societies stabilize. And if it doesn't, he sighed, suddenly looking every year of his considerable age. Then we correct it, gently. The last thing this galaxy needs is another religion. A message arrived from an unexpected source, the Imperial Scientific Academy. The transmission bore the seal of Dr. Elodin Vex, chief xenoanthropologist. My research suggests, the message read, that the Yaga phenomenon represents a unique evolutionary branch of humanity, one that developed differently due to isolation and environmental factors. I request permission to conduct non-invasive interviews to further understand. Baba Yaga deleted the message with a gesture. Scientists, he muttered, always trying to categorize what they cannot comprehend. Would it be so terrible, Alina asked, to let them understand a little of what we are? Her father considered this. Perhaps not. In time, when the wounds of liberation have healed. But now is not that moment. The ship's sensors suddenly alerted them to approaching vessels, a small fleet of Imperial design, but without official identifiers. The rogue elements Governor Talash had warned them about. Seems they found their courage sooner than expected, Baba Yaga observed mildly. The lead vessel transmitted a message, audio only, broadcast on all frequencies. Yaga vessel. This is Admiral Zorax of the Free Imperial Fleet. Your interference in galactic affairs ends now. Surrender or be destroyed. Alina couldn't help but laugh. They still don't understand. Her father's expression remained serene. Some lessons must be repeated before they take hold. He approached the control interface, hands moving in complex patterns over the wooden panels. Throughout the ship, systems responded, not with the aggressive posturing of Imperial weaponry, but with subtle shifts in energy fields, communication arrays, and quantum matrices. Shall I respond? Alina asked. No need. Baba Yaga stepped back from the controls. Actions speak more clearly than words in such circumstances. As the Imperial vessels approached, weapons charged, and targeting systems locked, a strange phenomenon began to manifest. Their engines sputtered and failed. Communication systems broadcast only static. Life support remained functional, but little else. Within minutes, the entire fleet hung dead in space, unable to advance or retreat. Baba Yaga opened a channel to all vessels simultaneously. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of centuries. Listen carefully, for I will say this only once. You are alive because I choose not to take what is not mine, your lives. Learn from this. Return to your homes. There's a place for you in the new order if you choose to accept it. He closed the channel before any response could come through. Will they listen? Alina asked. Some will, her father replied. Others must find their own path to understanding. He restored minimal power to the fleet, enough for life support and basic navigation, but their weapons remained disabled. "We've done what we can," he said, turning away from the controls. "The rest is their choice." Days later, reports confirmed that most of the rogue fleet had dispersed. Some ships had joined independent worlds as defense forces. Others had disappeared into the uncharted regions at the galaxy's edge. A few had returned to the Imperial core, accepting the new reality. Baba Yaga seemed satisfied with this outcome. "Balance," he told Alina as they shared evening tea in the Arboretum. "Not dominance. That's the heart of the Yaga philosophy." And yet, Alina observed, "We possess power that could dominate if we chose to use it that way, which is precisely why we must never choose that path." Her father's voice held a note of warning. "Our ancestors learned this lesson at great cost. Power corrupts most readily those who believe themselves immune to corruption." He set down his cup and gazed up through the Arboretum's transparent ceiling, where stars glittered in the void. "Our role is to maintain equilibrium, to prevent any single force, be it empire, federation, or something yet unimagined, from claiming absolute control." "Guardians," Alina murmured, echoing his earlier description. "Yes, but even guardians must be guarded against themselves." He fixed her with those pale blue eyes. "Remember that, daughter. It is the most important lesson I can teach you." Their ship began its final approach to Earth, not to the settlement where Alina had been captured, but to a remote location in the northern hemisphere, a vast forest untouched by Imperial incursions. Below, barely visible among the dense trees, stood a curious structure, a small house elevated on supports that, from a certain angle, resembled bent legs. "Home," Baba Yaga said simply. As they prepared for landing, Alina felt a curious mixture of completion and beginning. The cycle had turned again, empire challenged, balance restored, legends reinforced. But she knew this was merely one turn in an endless progression. "What now?" she asked. Her father smiled, that rare, transformative expression that revealed the humanity beneath the legend. "Now, we watch, we wait, we remember." He poured the last of the tea into their cups. "And when necessary, we remind them that some stories are more than just stories." The ship settled gently among the trees, its impossible technology finding harmony with the ancient forest. Around them, Earth continued its rotation, oblivious to how close it had come to remaining under Imperial control. Elsewhere in the galaxy, worlds adjusted to their new freedom, navigating the complex process of self-determination. And throughout it all, the name Yaga echoed in whispered legends, in diplomatic discussions, in the nightmares of those who still clung to Imperial ideology. Not a name to be feared, Alina decided as she sipped her tea, but one to be remembered. After all, forgetfulness had been the Empire's first and greatest mistake.